Now, no one cheat, okay? I don't know them myself, but I'm going to refer to them. I would like to know who can list any or all of the seven deadly sins. Pardon? Lust. Gluttony. Anger. It's wrath, okay? That's right. Sloth. Laziness. Greed. Pride. Ooh, good. Envy. Okay. Well, we're going to focus on greed because that's what the Scripture gives to us today. Greed. And I want to suggest that the Scriptures today are like a spiritual ham sandwich, okay? The ham in the middle is really nice and it's what we should be about, but we get stuck on this old crusty bread. The first reading in the gospel are about this greed, okay? And what happens to us with this greed. And the inside, Psalm 147, and the second reading, the letter to Timothy, they're beautiful descriptions of what happens when we stay connected with God. When we stay connected with our God, our care for the poor, our seeking justice, the goodness that thrives within. But we're not going to look at that good stuff right now. We're going to look at the bread, the envy. And Jesus, we heard the gospel last week, and this is a continuation. This gospel follows last week. And remember, last week was about this steward that wasn't taking care. He was stealing or whatever, and so the owner decides to get rid of him. And he connives, and he brings in some money for the boss, the owner, so that he could be taken care of. And Jesus praises the man for his craftiness. But he says at the end of the story last week, you can't serve God and mammon. You're either going to go after wealth and money and power and all that stuff, or you're going to go after God. Can't do both. Following that, he tells this story. It's a rich, rich story, and it's scary. And Jesus, the great teacher that he was, it's always colorful, it's always provocative, it's always exaggerated. He's making his point left and right. So he says to the Pharisees and the scribes about greed, he's already mentioned it, and it fits beautifully with the biblical saying, avoid greed in all its forms, because greed is pernicious. It's insidious. It sneaks into the spirit and soul, and before you know it, it can be taking over. And it can be wrapped around, even some generous people can be very, very greedy, but on the surface they're generous, they give, and yet this greed can be growing. So like in the introduction, they get more, and give less. What's going on there? You get more, but give less. What's going on there? This rich man eating sumptuously, Jesus says, sumptuously every day while a beggar is dying at his doorstep. Doesn't even give him breadcrumbs. What's going on there? What's Jesus' concern? Now, before I say anything about that, I want to say something about St. Bernard's. And it's this. I think St. Bernard's is a very generous parish, the most generous I've ever been in, honestly. And I'm just saying the fact. I say this to my priest friends. I've never been benefited by so many kind gifts of people in a parish ever. I started in San Marino. Nobody gave me anything there. Not that they're supposed to, but I come here and every birthday, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, I get money and checks and kindness. People come up and say, Father, get some coffee. I'm afraid to look at what's in my hand. Because I say, where do you buy your coffee, for God's sake? This is like too much. It's just a kind and generous parish. When we needed a roof, and they told you, and we all knew it because it was leaking for years, I think 4 months, we came up with $110,000. That's a generous parish. That's a generous parish. But I've been looking at the history of the parish because we're in our 95th year. We just celebrated it. 5 years, 2014, we celebrate 100 years. And so I'm about the business now of beginning to get a committee together to help me help us prepare for that 100th anniversary. There's a lot of work to it. I was looking at the 75th anniversary book, and on our website, Michael has a beautiful history of the parish. Beautiful history of the parish. And it describes the generosity and goodness of the people that came before us. They, when they decided to build the parish, 2014, and name it after St. Bernard, they started celebrating Mass in homes. Then they bought a little property down on San Fernando Road, I understand, if I recall, and celebrated Mass there. But very soon thereafter, they decided to build a church. And building a church and a plant like this is a lot of money, a lot of money. Takes a lot of generosity, a lot of desire to have a good parish. So people gave, and they gave their time and their effort and their skills, and they built this place. They built the church, they built the convent, the rectory, the school, all these grounds. And this is what people 95 years ago gave to us. We're the benefit of their generosity and love. There wasn't greed there. On the contrary, there was super, super generosity. But I'll tell you the moment in history that grabs me even more provocatively. It was around 1962. All of this was built except this. And this is what they said. And it had to be both the priests and the people, because the priests wouldn't pull it off alone. It took all the generosity of the parishioners. They said, "We have a lovely church. It's too small. We're growing. We've outgrown this little church building. We need to build something bigger." So they wrestled their money together to do this. And this is the only church I've been in 43 years that didn't have a railing and doesn't have any pillars blocking the altar. It is built for liturgy. But I'm so impressed that people would come to this awareness. We need to do something more. And then they did. And that's what we've inherited. So we recognize as we go into this 100th anniversary in 5 years, we've been given a lot over this last 100 years. We got to pay it forward, as they say. We got to make it there for the next generations and improve it. So it just happens by happenstance. It's lucky that something happened to us in our 5 years that will begin now and conclude in 2014. We're also going to be celebrating our 100th anniversary, the same year, 2014. And there is a campaign that has begun. And how many people have gotten the letters in the mail, called to renew, from the Archdiocese, called to renew? Well, all the envelope users got it. And if we have your address. And in it, it's saying that the Archdiocese has started a campaign, the first one that I know of in our history, in my history here. And it is an Archdiocesan and all parishes campaign, all 300. The goal is $500 million. And they're going to split it right down the middle, half to the Archdiocese and half to the parishes. And the reason is that the Archdiocese has 4 goals. It's vocations, it's chaplains to hospitals and to jails, it's chaplains to schools, especially universities, and it's parish, evangelization and parishes. And I know, because I've already heard, the reason I'm bringing it up this Sunday, because I know the letters are out there, I'm already hearing the chisme, the chisme? And here's some of the chisme. Oh, I don't want to give it to the Archdiocese, they're going to pay off those sexual assaults. No, they're not. I mean, they say they're not, and they have an outside agency, a third party, that will guarantee the transparency of every dollar that comes in. It'll be checked in several places within the diocese, but also by this place in Florida that's going to watch it. Now, if you don't trust them, I get it. The diocese let us down. Almost every diocese in the country has let their people down by letting these sexual assaults go on. Finally, after constant suits, they've gotten their act together, and they're changing the future. Can't change the past. So if you don't believe in them, don't trust them, okay, I'm sure you won't participate. But I have some faith that this is really an amazing program because, and this is the best part, as people pledge, and we've already pledged here, we've already pledged $38,500. That's from about 8 people. $38,500 for the next 5 years they'll pay. So if we get this enough people so that we pay off and reach our goal of $455,000, then after that, everything after that comes in comes directly to the parish. We have 4 projects that we'll be working on. And the parking lot, and the chapel, and the floor, and renewing the center and the hall. And there's many other things. Somebody came out to every single parish, and the one that visited our parish, when he just did a visual checking out the facility, said, this parish needs $1,300,000 repairs. And that is not all. That's not checking behind the walls, the pipes, and electricity. The biggest expense in the diocese, and they've said it for my past 43 years as priest, is capital repair. Because every parish has let it go. Any of you who work in construction, you'll tell me. I mean, how many years have we put up with this floor? The bathrooms don't even tell me. So we get this gift. It just happens to coincide in the 5 years preparation for our feast day of 100 years. We're doing this campaign at the exact same time. As the monies come in, we're able to apply them and start doing the repairs. And we get a chance to renew the place, the buildings. But just as big a job, and oh, by the way, that part I hate. I hate asking for money, and I hate looking at all these things that we got to do. And I don't know how to do them. So I've said before, I need people who work in construction, people who have this knowledge to help me. I don't want to make the final decision all by myself about this floor. I want some help. Because when you yell about it, I don't want you to yell at me, yell at the committee. Yell at the committee. We're in this together. But my expertise, and the part that I want to take even fuller responsibility for, more of it, is the renewal of the inner part of our parish, the spirituality and the life of the parish. For example, not a criticism. All of our groups, Holy Name, St. Vincent de Paul, Knights of Columbus, the average age is somewhere between 60, 70, and 80. Long-time faithfulness to these groups. 30, 40, 50, 60 years people have been in them, but 80 years old. People lifting tables here for functions. Where are our young people, our younger families? And it's not that they don't want to. Many times people try to get into a group and don't feel welcome, and it needs renewal. It needs renewal. We've got all these young kids. I'm going to say more about this later, but I'm going to be soon inviting everybody that has a kid to be within the first 4 rows every Sunday. Because imagine what this is like. You're a kid. Can you come up here for a moment, okay? Yeah, I'm going to show you this. And this is with my back, I'm going to do this. He's in front of me, in the row in front of me, and I'm behind him. We're both standing, and this is what I'm looking at. The Lord be with you and with your back. Thank you. Really? Is that what we're giving our kids, to look at the back of an adult in front of them because they can't see anything? No wonder they're bored. No wonder they don't get it. There's a whole bunch of stuff we have to look at if we're going to renew and bring to life and give this life to our children. So that's the next 5 years. Now, all of that in the context of Jesus commenting about greed. He tells the scribes and Pharisees this story, and it's typical Jesus. It's exaggerated but wonderful. Describes this rich man eating sumptuously every day, and then describes Lazarus, who is outside dying at his doorstep. Doesn't even get the crumbs from the table. The dogs are licking his sores, for God's sake. Licking his sores. He dies. So immediately, angels come and take him up to Abraham. He's in the bosom of Abraham. Finally gets some comfort. And then the rich man dies. And where does he go? To hell. Flames, something, torment. Then, Jesus says, this conversation pops up. The man in torment, the rich man, looks at Lazarus in the bosom of Abraham and says, Abraham, help me. Can you please send Lazarus to dip his finger in a drop of water and put it on my tongue? I'm dying in this torment. And then Jesus says, well, Abraham says, I wish I could. I would if I could, but you don't understand. There's a chasm here between us. And we can't pass to you and you can't pass to us, so sorry, can't be done. So Jesus goes on, pushes the story forward, and he says, well then, this rich man says, Well, okay, if you can't do that, could you at least send Lazarus to tell my 5 brothers who are still alive so they don't end up in this torment? And you got to hand it to him. At least he cares about somebody, even if it's his own blood, but he cares about somebody. Go tell them. And Abraham says, why? They have Moses and the prophets. They're the ones telling him. Moses and the prophets, for God's sake. And he says, they won't listen to Moses and the prophets, but if somebody came back from the dead, and this is where the story turns on us. I'm going to ask a question of anyone under 10 years of age, 10 years or younger. Do we know, 10 years and younger, do we know anybody who has come back from the dead? Come on. Who do we know? Hint, hint, hint. Do we know somebody who's come back from the dead? Who? Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Christ. We say we believe that. He's telling this story today. And the point I believe he's making is this. Greed is insidious. People don't just wake up and they're greedy. It seeps into our spirit. Slowly, it comes in, it sneaks in. And what the scriptures today say is something begins to happen to us. We stop having care for those who are poor and needy. For God's sake, we're Los Angeles. We're one of the richest. California is the 7th largest economy in the world. 7th largest nation in the world is California. And we have 60,000 homeless people in Los Angeles? What's wrong with this? And I know we care and don't care at the same time. I know we don't know what to do and we know what to do at the same time. It's a mixed bag. But are we, as a people, greedy in a way that we stop caring? There's people that say I just saw it in the paper today, along the river here, they want to build 415 units. But of course, the community says, not in our neighborhood. Yeah, we want to help them, but help them somewhere else, not here. So we go in this circle of saying we care, wanting it cleaned up, but we don't. I crossed the street the other day, going over to the pastoral center, and I know that, all of us probably are a bit uncomfortable, like walking through an encampment, walking down the street, and there's tents all over and junk everywhere, and, people have gone to the bathroom, it's just, and you don't know what you're going to find. And then you start hearing people shout and say crazy things. You've seen them along the freeway, and somebody going across the street, and he's shouting at everybody and nobody. And so I passed across the street, and this young man's walking down the street, probably about 18, 22, I don't know, looked pretty healthy, but he's talking to himself. I mean, like really having a conversation. So I looked for earbuds. I thought, surely there's some earbuds, and he's on the phone or something. He wasn't on the phone. He was on his own phone, I guess. I don't know. And he was having a wild conversation. So I didn't say anything. I'm 10 feet behind him, and he goes up the walkway to the pastoral center. I said, this is going to get good now. So he hit the door or something, then turned around and walked away right away. As he started to pass by me, I said, good morning. He said, sinner. Sinner. Now, how did he know? I don't know. But what was that? And where did it come from? And did I like it? No, I didn't feel unsafe, but wow. And that's what we got. Do we care? Do we care about that life and people who are desperate? And even though we individually certainly don't quite know what to do, there's little ways that we can do something. And Jesus is trying to get at this. Greed in all its forms. Be careful. So we keeps trying to pry open our spirit. How do we, even all our fears and the need to protect ourselves and who we are and what we have, how do we still not lose that spiritual desire to care for those who are poor and in need? How do we do it? And it's difficult. You know, what Jesus doesn't usually do is give an answer, but he gives an answer that is big and wide and asks us first to ask ourselves, what can I do? What do I want to do? What do I want to become faced with this? And today, he does it again. If we are so blessed that we can help a Lazarus, even give him a crumb, what a blessing indeed. And that's what Jesus holds out to us today.